Faulkner, co-host of Outnumbered and host of the Faulkner Focus on Fox News. Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief, National Review. Miranda Devine, ace New York Post columnist and also a Fox News contributor. Harris, I like the way you were boogieing there, so I'm going to lead off with you. Come on, we're together. One.
You do really? Now we're going to be a meme.
All right. But in all seriousness, now, this may not last, and we've seen presidential honeymoons before. I get all that. I don't think I've seen one this long, however, this intense. And I didn't see NFL players dancing your dance in the end zone. But it is interesting to me that I sense the country wants him to succeed.
Look, I don't think that Democrats were wrong when they first tried to run Kamala Harris. And she had a decidedly very long honeymoon period, too. It just didn't hang on when they first put her in over Joe Biden. But they weren't wrong that the country could use a little joy and uplift. Many people struggling just to get the groceries on the table and still being told that they're imagining their journey. So they weren't wrong about that. They just couldn't sustain it because the facts were against them. And, you know, so right now, I think that there is a sort of collective, okay, we've decided as a nation who the next president's going to be. We don't have to wait in limbo unless you're in like some state, Senate, and House races, what they still haven't called. That's a story for another hour. But you don't have to worry about that with the president. So now the joy can begin of what's next. When will the change come? And you see him like with whip-neck speed trying to get his cabinet picks in place and all of that. So he's moving forward to prove that he can get that done. He's also being true to who he is. It's the authenticity along the way.
Right.
Of course he's going to go to the UFC championships at MSG. Of course he's going to take that victory lap. And there are going to be people there that might not have ever said they wanted to vote for him that did. And many of those people look like me. Many are Hispanic, Asian, as you mentioned.
And he just,
and just to see you bust a move, right?
He doesn't use his lower bottle, but he's got a
he
nice
does. Have you seen the golf swing?
That
takes your feet because you got to end in the ice cream cone. I don't play golf. I've been told that that's how it is. So just this last point. With putting the cabinet together and hearing the push against him potentially on the Hill with lawmakers, and then hearing these blue-led state Democrat governors saying they're going to defy the people's choice and push against everything he does in their interest, it's rich. And if they think they're going to win back voters that way, they're wrong. But the joy will reside on the right side of the aisle until the left decides to smile and move on.
Yeah, Miranda, that's an interesting point. The last thing that Harris, because I mean, I watched Phil Murphy, governor of New Jersey. I know Phil Murphy. He's a very nice man. I think he's lost his mind on this, but he's one of them. Kathy Hochul here in New York. Gavin Newsom, I'm not so surprised. I know him rather well, too, but that's a whole different story. But if they're going to stand in the way deliberately right at the outset, they're going to create so much ill will for themselves. The Republicans might wind up taking their states or even doing even better than they did in the last election, turning blue into red. I mean, it's folly for them to go after red. The guy hasn't even started yet, and the country seems to be behind him. How dumb are they?
It's really dumb because how well did that tactic work, Trump derangement syndrome, when Nancy Pelosi was running it? And, you know, they've now lost coast to coast. Even Nancy Pelosi's hometown of San Francisco swung to Trump by 7 points. You know, they've lost the House, they've lost the Senate, they've lost the Electoral College and the popular vote. Trump derangement, everybody saw through it. You've even got Morning Joe and Mika making the humiliating parade down to Mar-a-Lago to try and, you know, change sides. It doesn't work. It's been a disaster. So I don't know what these governors are doing, thinking that they can mount a resistance. Obviously, they're going to oppose some of the policies, but give the guy a chance, because calling him Hitler and demonising him, trying to employ lawfare against him, impeaching him, and then trying to assassinate him, it just made him stronger.
Rich Lowry, I just saw FNC Digital posting a story Trump's 76 million plus, I think 76.4 million. That is the most votes any Republican president has ever received. He's still ahead in the popular vote by a couple of million. Of course, he's ahead in the Electoral College by a lot more than that. How do you read this? I mean, again, as I'll say, we've seen honeymoons before. Now, it may be, his own personality, which is very ebullient, easy to follow. But I don't see it quite like this. I don't see anything quite like this that I can remember, even going way, way back to Reagan. Yes, you get a couple days, and then things settle down, and then you get into the transition. He's done everything at once with a loud bang and getting a massive following. What do you make of it?
First of all, let me thank you personally for not asking me to boogie on air. I really appreciate it, Larry. But let's pause on that Madison Square Garden moment.
Yeah.
Because if you said there's going to be a Republican politician going to UFC championship, and he's going to get huge applause. Rudy Giuliani, maybe after September 11th. Otherwise, no, it's not going to happen. So it just goes to the new audiences this guy has tapped into. And I think a huge part of what happened is there are a lot of voters probably in that garden and at MSG who are like, I'm a kind of a moderate, I don't care about politics that much. But the left went so far, the Financial Times had a great piece about this, the Democrats went so far left, the center moved left. So you're a moderate, but now you're right of center, right? So now you're actually, I'm considering this guy because he's normal compared to the other people. And he actually made gains among moderates and made gains, as Miranda was alluding to, in a lot of blue areas because people are so disaffected with the disastrous misgovernance in our cities.
The front page, front of the Wall Street Journal website right now is running a story how the biggest mistake the Democrats made was ignoring the inflation problem, both, before, during, and after. But I want to ask you, Harris, cultural issues, I think, played a quieter but absolute key role in this election. Now, to some extent, it was all about biological men playing in women's sports. That was probably the tip of the iceberg. But people saw, heard things, didn't like the woke, didn't like the DEI affirmative action, didn't like the cancel culture. When I think about Madison Square Garden, I think about those young kids in there. Most of them are fairly young and probably under 35 or 40. I don't think they liked any of that stuff one bit.
So what you're talking about is the iceberg that's above the ocean, the part that you don't see, the bigger part of the iceberg that's holding the other part up. Really, there were just issues of race, culture, ethnicity that were played on the left in very dangerous ways by playing us against each other, by telling black men you don't support black women because you're misogynistic. Yeah. You aren't voting for Kamala because you just don't know what you're doing. You're not really thinking straight. You're not really loving them, so on and so forth. And that came from a former president, Barack Obama. It wasn't like they were being mansplained by somebody they didn't know, but practically arms akimbo, he's telling them how to be black. It was a flashback to a time when Joe Biden said if you didn't vote for him and you were black, you weren't really black. You don't get to lecture cultures from a high place paying Beyonce and Oprah. Now we know she made not 1 million, but 2.5, Oprah, for showing up.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that happened today.
She really needed the money. Sorry.
Well, I don't know. I'm not really into her finances, but, did Lizzo need millions? I'm not really sure. But anyway, women got paid. Performers got paid to be on stage and not to sing. But just to support publicly Kamala Harris. And my point with that is she had a real disconnect with Hispanics and blacks in this country. Right. And Asians and other cultures and ethnicities and races saw that too and said, well, our bottom line isn't doing well either. Yeah. Like I interviewed all voters from every ilk, every age group, and they said, look, Harris, you're right, the color is green. The atmosphere has to be American dream driven, and this one isn't by Kamala Harris. She keeps laughing and she keeps smiling, and then she got serious toward the end and started calling people fascists and her vice presidential partner Tim Walz. Everybody at MSG for Trump is a Nazi and all this kind of stuff. So they're dividing. And then black people got really quiet. Where was James Clyburn until a couple of days ago when he was upset? What was going on?
Another submerged iceberg, though, was the opposition to this woke stuff. Most people, it happens in their workplace or, at a hospital or a medical office where these whispered conversations, this stuff is crazy. You're not a birthing parent, you're a mother. That training was insane, but I don't want anyone to know I think it's insane. Yeah. This was a way for people to make their dissent from all that audible. They could go in the voting booth in secret and make their views known by voting for a big middle finger to all that stuff in the form of Donald Trump.
I think he knew this. I mean, his closing ads had this quite a bit of the cultural issue in them.
That brilliant line where he said, she's for they, them.
That's right.
Trump's for you.
That's right. And taxpayers paying for various transgender operations. I don't, choices, people are going to make choices. Personal choices, that's up to them. Taxpayers paying for it, or taxpayers in prison paying for it, or the military. We're going to talk about the military later in the show. I just think it was just like a silent majority that was furious at this kind of stuff. We talked about this at Outnumbered, the Sunday before the Tuesday election. It came up again and again. And I think a lot of people missed it. I think a lot of pollsters missed it as well. Miranda, can I jump to something maybe less euphoric, but very important? There's two issues here. One of them is the Pete Hegseth story in the Pentagon, and the other one's going to be the Matt Gaetz story in the Justice Department. But you wrote on the Pete Hegseth story, and what is it that they're going to do here? They have witnesses who are not good witnesses, not credible witnesses. What is it that they're worried about with Pete Hegseth?
Well, I don't think Trump is worried about him. I think Trump is going ahead with him. This is just the usual smear that every single member of this administration is going to suffer. And we've seen that Trump and his people are Teflon. They've thrown every smear possible at Trump. They've called him a rapist, a Nazi, you name it. And he won a landslide. So it doesn't work. I think people see it for what it is. Pete Hegseth is a danger to the blob, to the sort of military-industrial complex, because he's a real soldier and he's totally against the woke DEI, the endless wars, the pointless, military spending. And I mean, Matt Gaetz is the same thing. They're both kind of middle fingers by Trump to the deep state. It's telling them it's not going to be business as usual anymore. I'm not going to be Mr. Nice Guy like I was the first time.
One mistake that Trump made the first time around, generals are impressive, right? They tend to be good at one thing, right? Military affairs. Doesn't mean they're going to be good at politics. Doesn't mean they're going to have any political courage. Doesn't mean they're going to have original, good views, right? So now he's like, forget the generals. I'm going a layer below to a war fighter. And Pete's views on this, that the role of the military is to go out and break things and kill people, and you're not going to poison it with this idiotic DEI ideology, is extremely important.
What did you think about this? What is DEI? Is a form of I think of it as affirmative action on steroids. And I think people were I think the original affirmative action became very unpopular. Lawsuits at Harvard and University of North Carolina and places like that. Anti-Semitism is very unpopular. Somehow Democrats...
Anti-Semitism is wrong.
Of course, it's deadly wrong.
So it's not just unpopular.
It's morally wrong and it's unpopular. But I'm just saying, Democrats wound up lining up behind all of these things. They never really lifted a finger on anti-Semitism. They never really they defended woke to the bitter end. How could they be so stupid? There's no common sense here. Well, ordinary working folks, ordinary middle-class folks, how could they be so stupid?
Well, the goal is to control. So I had a guest on the Faulkner Focus recently who said DEI didn't earn it. And the problem with that is that when you give, and I don't even know how constitutionally fair this is, but when, we are looking at things very much decades post-civil rights and other movements in this country, but particularly that one that had to do with affirmative action and other movements to try to right-size salaries and opportunity and all of that. But when you get into the land of merit, and where everybody's got to be looked upon now for what they can bring to the table, what people really want is a leg up. There are a lot of ways to help people without putting them into a category that has an acronym. There are a lot of ways to make sure that, well, maybe we give women some help with some daycare situation. That was a question at the town hall, the all-women town hall that I did with now President-elect Trump. There are a lot of things. Again, stop putting us in these categories. And diversity, part of the problem is diversity isn't just your skin color and your hair texture.
Correct.
I was raised military. I'm one lane. There are all sorts of things that make us diverse in a multiple type of situation on the job. We can't have everybody coming from the same sort of ilk. And that's diversity, but that's not really what we're saying. If I could just say one quick thing with regard to the nominees that the president is putting forth. You mentioned Pete Hegseth. I would say about that this nation actually watched a White House put up with the behavior of the current SecDef disappearing for days after a surgery that he did not disclose, and the White House didn't even know he was gone. So I think the bar is someplace where I can't see.
We'll know where he is, right?
Maybe
He's
it's
show up to work.
invisible, the sudden crisis of merit and concern. Pete Hegseth is a two-time Bronze Star winner in the military. Look, they're going to vet and depose everybody, I would think, right? Isn't that kind of how they're going to do it? Now, I don't know if they're going to use the FBI to do that. Trump has said he's had too much recent experience with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so he might not want to. But when you come to these nominees, what are you saying? You talked about the middle finger. That's a middle finger to the public who just voted for Trump. Do they really want to tick off voters that badly?
Can I read you Ruffini on this? He's a very smart guy. One of the authors of the new Republican Working Class Coalition has been writing about it for years in this piece today. Mr. Trump's new coalition members embrace a politics of aspiration and not a leftward shift towards dependency on government. And then here it is, growing up, they were told by their parents to support the Democratic Party. These are minority groups. Support the Democratic Party because it was the party of the poor. Their response, we don't have to be poor.
Yeah, there you go. So
it's not so much race. Yes, always there. I get that. Religion always there. Ethnicity always there. How about the economy? How about growth? See, Trump's playing to that. They remembered middle and lower income working folks remembered their take-home pay under Trump the first time.
Yeah, the implicit offer.
Pretty damn good.
The implicit offer to Hispanics that was implicitly rejected this year's from Democrats, you can be an oppressed minority too. Wouldn't it be great to be an oppressed minority, a victim group? You can be a victim group. And they're like, no, we want to be Americans and succeed like everyone else. A lot of polling showed that Hispanic voters cared more about the economy than white voters, right? So they don't like this ethnic pandering.
I love this. Their response, we don't have to be poor. I just love that.
Well, Kamala proved that, right? The only group she gained in over Biden and again Trump was people earning more than $100,000 a year. I mean, I think that Trump hit on something when he started to say, I'm going to cut taxes on Social Security. He's going on both ends of the spectrum.
And tips.
That's a tight budget
tax
when
on
you
tips.
retire.
Overtime. Overtime.
Yeah.
So these are wage workers who aren't quite earning the wage that keeps up with now an inflation that's going back up, by the way,
Fox
right?
hosts overtime. Right. No taxes. No taxes.
No, but Friday, didn't the inflation rate tick back up again?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so I mean, Biden's going out on some bad news.
No, that's correct. I think that's right. Well, we will see if the joy continues. Right
well,
now,
it is here.
Did you want to do a little
Dance.
something?
Yeah.
See, you just want me to dance. You know what?
No,
I think you like to dance. Do we have music? I'll dance with you. Come on. But we need music.
Thank you, Rich, Lowry, Miranda Devine, and Harris Faulkner.